the gentlewoman from Iowa is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in opposition to H.R. 3967, the PACT Act. I wish that this were not the case. I would love to be here today, standing proud alongside Chairman in support of this bill. I know Ranking Member Bost would as well. I am new to Congress, but I understand that historically, the VA committee would work on a bipartisan basis to advance legislation of this magnitude. The Mission Act and the Forever GI Bill are wonderful examples of the majority and minority in the House and Senate working together in prior Congresses on a compromise that both sides could support and send to the President's desk. That's how Congress should work. That's why they used to say that those of us on the VA committee would leave our party affiliations at the door and that the VA committee was the most bipartisan committee in Congress. That is no longer the case under this Democrat majority. The PACT Act is a sad example of that. My fellow Republicans and I want to work with the majority to create fair and consistent pathway for health care benefits for toxic exposed veterans. This is an issue we care deeply about, for which I have a personal association and have made our top priority in the 117th Congress. But the majority has consistently refused to meaningfully communicate with us on this bill. In fact, the majority significantly rewrote major portions and components of the PACT Act less than 2 weeks ago and refused to even discuss those changes with those of us in the minority. Because we did not work together to resolve our differences, the bill has serious flaws that we were unable to resolve. Already, the manager's amendment would expand benefits to more veterans without scientific justification, showing just how slippery a slope this bill would set. As an alternative, I support creating a fair and consistent process for the VA to decide whether benefits are warranted for certain military toxic exposure events. VA should base this decision on a criteria that weighs the strength of scientific evidence supporting a link between the development of a condition and toxic exposure. In fact, for the past 2 years during the pandemic, we have heard repeatedly from the opposite side about following the science. If the VA determines that there is at least 50% chance that these veterans' disabilities are linked to toxic exposure, then VA should grant benefits on a presumptive basis. The PACT Act attempts to create such a framework, but I believe more discussion is needed to determine if it's the best path forward. That is especially important since the VA began piloting its own program for deciding whether there is a scientific link between a disability and toxic exposure last year. Under VA's model, certain Gulf War and post-9/11 veterans who were exposed to airborne hazards and developed asthma, sinusitis, rhinitis became eligible for benefits last September. And just this past week, VA announced it will provide compensation to certain veterans who are diagnosed with 9 rare respiratory cancers. VA's decisions were based on science. However, it's unclear if all the conditions under Chairman Takano's bill would meet the scientific threshold under his framework or under the VA's. Furthermore, the PACT Act could also flood VA with so many new mandates that veterans already receiving care and benefits wait longer. Veterans wait too long for VA services right now. I hear frequently from veterans in Iowa who can't get the care they need, are waiting months, and in some states, even years for the benefits they've earned. I don't know of a member in this body who can't say the same thing. Making those veterans wait even longer is unacceptable, and it could be unprecedented where claims process is concerned. In 2013, the disability claims backlog peaked at 600,000 pending claims. Veterans were waiting years to receive an initial decision of their claim, and then if it was denied, they were waiting even longer while the VA processed their appeal. VA has made some improvements to how disability claims are processed since 2013, but the department is still years away from developing the information technology needed to truly expedite claims processing. If the PACT Act were enacted, VA estimates the disability claims backlog could reach over 1.5 million claims by the end of fiscal year 2023. That's more than double the height of the backlog in 2013. If veterans were waiting years for their benefits 9 years ago, imagine how long they would have to wait today for a backlog that is more than 2 times the size it was then. That is completely unreasonable. The PACT Act is also unacceptable for taxpayers. CBO estimates the PACT Act would require over $300 million in new government spending. Not a penny of those costs are offset. Additionally, some of the amendments we will be voting on would increase the cost by millions of dollars in new mandatory spending on top of that. You will hear some say that this is just the cost of war. Anyone who has served or has a loved one who serves, like I have and do, know what war costs. They also know that veterans pay taxes too. They also know that veterans have children and grandchildren whose futures they don't want to be any more burdened with debt than they already are. The PACT Act cost more than combined discretionary budgets of 9 cabinet-level departments. Think about that. And then think about inflation and our national debt, which is already skyrocketing and is causing American taxpayers to pinch pennies. We are not doing right by our veterans by being fiscally irresponsible in their name. And I say that as a veteran myself. Finally, there is no clear or quick path forward in the Senate for the PACT Act. In comparison, we could send legislation to the President's desk today that would help sick veterans get the care they need. The Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act would let toxic exposed post-9/11 combat veterans enroll in the VA healthcare system. It is bipartisan, and it has already passed the Senate last month. I understand the majority would like to go to conference over the Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act and the PACT Act. But I also understand that the majority supports the Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act because they included it as a provision in the Rules Committee print of the PACT Act. If we all agree that the Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act is a good policy, why would we delay its enactment? Every day that the House fails to send it to the President is another day that veterans are deprived of life-saving care. Nothing could be more wrong-headed than that. The Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act is the correct first step towards this process. If we deliver needed health care to toxic, exposed veterans and buy us the time to work on a bipartisan, bicameral basis to deliver other benefits and services to them down the line, they would at least have health care now. We should have done this throughout this congressional session, but we haven't even started yet. Sick veterans should not pay the price for our inaction. Rather than pass the PACT Act in the House, with its many flaws and its extremely high likelihood of dying in the Senate, we must pass the Healthcare for Burn Pit Veterans Act today. With that, I reserve the balance of my time.